The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 16. DraftKings ownership projections powered by FanshareSports.com, plus an update on all of the spreads and the line movement, maybe some of our favorite picks towards the end. We were fire last week when it came to the picks, but before we get into that, I want to let you know that if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, smash that like button for the episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and if we talk about the high-end wide receivers this week in the DraftKings Millionaire Maker slate, cross off DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to be super highly owned. Who would be the next one you would go to? You can only play one that's not DeAndre Hopkins. Which one would it be? I'm curious to know because the ownership looks pretty flat for all these guys. No one really has a strong opinion one way or another. So let's see. Let's throw it out to the people. See what they say. You do that, you're in a draw for 20 DK dollars. Next Monday, the 24th, preview for the PGA season. Christmas Day. It's a Merry Customas for all. Cuss Corner 16 dropping that day. Week 17 rankings on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll have the complete spread show. Friday, we'll have the DraftKings show for Week 17 to get you prepared to win some money over the second holiday, the New Year's weekend. And then we're on to the playoff schedule and the golf schedule. It all just keeps on churning at the Pat Mayo Experience. Remember to subscribe and to the audio podcast so you never miss an episode. Joining me from DK Live and FantasyGolfMetrics.com, it is Geoff Ulrich. Nice hit on your Brashad Perriman, pal.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I know. And I know it's the week after now, so everyone's expecting something great. I do have something a little bit similar. We'll get to it at the end of the show, obviously, for the Saturday slate again. But yeah, it was a nice way to start the week. It was a really good week for betting last week, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, I gave out Andy Jones his first touchdown. You gave out Brashad Perriman his first touchdown. Let me guess, Jeremy Sprinkle first touchdown.
No, it's not Sprinkle. It's not Sprinkle. Do you want me to hit it now, or do you want to?
No, save it. I was just seeing if I could guess it because I was looking.
Not Sprinkle.
I was looking at the ones for that game. I was like, oh no, Vernon Davis, no Jordan Reed. Get the sprinkler in there.
The sprinkler is a play. He's probably going to be chalk, which is really scary. But
chalk on the Saturday slate.
Yeah, for the Saturday slate. I mean, the tight end is just like a disaster. So.
Hey, let's hop into this. DraftKings main slate, Millionaire Maker only, early games, late games, no prime time associated with the Millionaire Maker slate. Running backs to kick it off. The most tagged running back of the week is Nick Chubb, followed by Christian McCaffrey, and then Marlon Mack. The other guys that I have is projected at over 15% ownership, Elliott and Barkley. Elliott's my favorite play on the slate completely. Doesn't matter what the price is. I think that he is in the best spot. I think Nick Chubb is in the best spot of that second tier of running backs. But it does strike me like Saquon might go like 14, 15, 16% owned, even at his price point. I know the matchup's not great. Coming off a week where A, the Giants sucked, and B, the Colts shut down the entire Dallas offense. What do you make of the top of the slate this week at running back? Is it a double pay up week?
Sort of. Like I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I don't know why Ezekiel Elliott isn't just getting pounded by everyone. Like I feel like he should be 40% owned in this spot.
So what you're saying? It should be a Bukaki Ezekiel Elliott week?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like Tampa Bay is just allowing huge amounts of rushing yards over the last 4 or 5 games. The rushing defense has been heading in the exact wrong direction. It just feels like a lock for 150 yards for Zeke in a home game, where they're favored by 7. But, people want to get on McCaffrey still. I think that's a mistake with Taylor Heineke at QB and they're shutting down people on defense now. Who knows when they're going to start to limit his carries? I know that might not happen, but even if they don't, there's no layup now for McCaffrey, in my opinion, with Cam out. So I think Zeke is the easy spot here. If he's going to be like only 20% owned, I'll be way overweight. I'd like the spot for Chubb. The lack of PPR totals concerns me a little bit if the game flow goes against him, but he's played so well. You have to, I think in that matchup against Cincinnati, you just have to get some exposure. So those are my 2 favorite plays as well. I don't think you necessarily have to go with McCaffrey or Barkley. I think there's some really good value plays in guys who are getting bigger volumes or potentially getting bigger volumes this week. So.
Well, if you don't want to take Chubb, let's say you're only playing like 5 lineups and you do want to make a contrarian stand somewhere, I want to play Chubb, but I know that he's going to be like 25% owned. And there are very similar options right around him. I know Joe Mixon was on the injury report on the other side of the ball, but he's been piling up the catches with Driscoll over the past few weeks. He's been excellent. He's almost the same price, and no one's using him. No one seems to be using Jalen Samuel, and with a banged-up Juju, he could have more work in the receiving game as well. Dalvin Cook is right there. No one is using Kamara. No one's using David Johnson. Like, do you have interest in any of those guys as a pivot?
I'm going to roll out some Pittsburgh New Orleans stacks. So because I like stacking that game, I definitely have to like Samuels and Kamara a little bit. I definitely Samuels. And I think you're right with the Juju Smith-Schuster news. I think Samuels could be the guy who actually gets the real bump there. He still played 70% of the snaps. I don't even think they used him to his full potential last week. This is a dome game going against the Saints, who are actually pretty good at stopping the rush. I think you might see him get more involved as a passer this week, almost like we saw Lev Bell sometimes week to week. He'd take 30 rushes and he'd get like 12 targets. This could be that type of game for Jalen Samuels. So I am definitely going to roll out some Jalen Samuels. I don't hate the spot for Dalvin Cook, but Detroit has played a little bit better. It's a road game. I think there might be a bit of a letdown. They got like the 1 week bump with the new OC. I think I'd rather play Samuels there. I look at them both as similar. Maybe Cook has a bit safer floor, but I like Samuels. And like I said, when I'm rolling out those stacks, I'm definitely going to have some Kamara involved as well, just because I feel like his potential in the Superdome. I know his floor has been bad lately, but he's still got that super high, bust out a big game ceiling kind of thing.
For me, if I'm going to pivot off of Nick Chubb, I think it's going to be to Joe Mixon. I would assume that his floor is the best and his touch upside is the highest of all of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, the touch upside definitely. The volume will be there. He's basically playing almost every down. Cincinnati isn't going to limit his snaps in this game, I don't think. Maybe next week, but not this week. He's a little bit banged up in practice. I just worry, I guess, about the game flow a little bit, and just Jeff Driscoll as his quarterback. You might just see like a super ugly game because the Cleveland defense is pretty good. I guess there's more bust with Mixon than, say, a guy like Dalvin Cook. But you're right. I mean, the upside for these guys, I think that we're all bringing up is pretty good, which makes them pretty good GPP pivot plays, in my opinion.
That's why I wanted to talk about the pivot off of Chubb, because all these guys in their own way can hit their ceiling and absolutely smash the slate. So I think it is worth talking about them, although we both identified that we like Chubb the most. The problem is everyone likes Chubb the most. Yeah. So he's going to carry that sort of ownership. The big thing that surprised me, Marlon Mack, third in those tags, and he's in that mid $5,000 range. It seemed like Jamal Williams was shaping up to be chalk, and then everyone just talked themselves out of Jamal Williams as the week went along. It seems to me like Marlon Mack may carry 4 times as much ownership as Jamal Williams, especially coming off the big game in a tough spot against Dallas. Now you're looking at 9.5-point favorites at home. It sets up to be a really good week. I'm good with fading Marlon Mack, playing Andrew Luck, hoping they score that way. I can see myself getting onto Jamal Williams now.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, the week's pretty much gone the exact same with me. I like Jamal Williams at the start. I thought he was going to be too chalky. Now I look back, and it's Marlon Mack who everyone is on, and for good reason. Like you said, 9-point favorites. But look at what the Colts have done the year. I mean, it's not like Marlon Mack is going out and getting 30 touches every week. It's been like a couple situational games where he's had those big touches and he's had those big fantasy games, but there's not follow through, and he's not really that involved in the pass game either. So there's a big chance of bust here. If Andrew Luck, just stays efficient, hits Ebron for a touchdown or something, I'd much rather play Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is a good pass-catching running back. Maybe he's not as explosive as Aaron Jones, and I know people, think, I got to play Aaron Jones. He's so much better. He's not that much better than Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is probably the better pass-catching back too. So I expect him to be very involved in this game. Probably going to be on the field for like 85% of the snaps. Yeah, I think the everything is there for a big game for Jamal Williams. So I'll be using him over Mack too.
Yeah, plus matchup for him. They did sign Capri Bibbs earlier this week, who's an excellent pass-catching back. But do you anticipate Bibbs playing all that much on a new team signed midway through the week?
No, and Joe Philbin, the head coach of the Packers, basically says this is going to be Jamal Williams to be featured. I mean, he's basically come out and said that. I mean, Bibbs, A, is not good. So I don't know why the Packers would be rushing to get him in there. And B, like he's been with the team for a week. So, I think Jamal Williams is a very good play. And Mack is still splitting snaps. Like Himes is the pass catching back there. So, like I said, I think there's way more bust potential with Mack.
Three guys below $5,000 that I think are viable. One is Tevin Coleman, who I don't really love. Elijah McGuire, who is in line to see 70% of the snaps, the goal line work, and maybe be used out of the backfield in that same game against Jamal Williams. And the other one is Matt Breida, $4,200. Terrible matchup, but at home, only a 4-point dog, and he comes into the week banged up. I'm going to use the Jake Seeley rule here that any week that he's questionable, you want to start Matt Breida because he's going to be good.
Yeah, that's true. When he comes in healthy, that's when he gets injured in the game and then goes out. When he comes in questionable, he's somehow okay and lasts the game. So that is a good rule. I like this, the 49ers receivers. We'll talk about them later over Breida. I understand the appeal though, 4,200. And he's looked good at times. And the 49ers have run on some pretty good run defenses. So I see the appeal. I like a guy in the 49ers receiver better. I like Tevin Coleman. And I understand some of the concerns. You know, they have a guy, Brian Hill, he's like a 5th-round pick. He's probably going to split some work. I still think Coleman's going to get a few more carries than usual here. It's, again, we're week 16, not week 17. I'll worry more about Coleman's workload in week 17. And I just look at the opponent. You know, the Panthers shut down Shaq Thompson this week. It just feels like they're packing it in. And they're practicing in a freaking like hotel today. So I think Tevin Coleman's explosive. I think even if he only gets like 60% of the snaps, he's still someone who's gone off with, you know, very limited workload in the past. So he's playing for a contract next year too. This is kind of a big couple weeks for Tevin Coleman. So I really like him as a play this week, 4,800, especially for GPPs. Not for cat.
I prefer McGuire over Coleman at a very similar price.
Yeah, and look, the workload is there for McGuire. And again, maybe from a cash game perspective, he's got a safer floor. But I think McGuire is, I just don't see the big play. I think the matchup maybe isn't as good as people think. Trent Cannon was getting involved there. Quite frankly, I think he just looked like a better back to me when they were playing last week. So maybe it's just I just have a higher appeal of Tevin Coleman. I'm just going to ignore the volume concerns, but that's the way I'm going this week.
Any of the Miami backs with Frank Gore now placed on injured reserve, either Balaj or Drake, they're both good prices, but Jacksonville's a tough matchup, and I don't know what they're doing in Miami.
No, and that's the thing. Like they say Balaj is probably going to get the carries, but what if he comes out and sucks? I mean, I think if I was going to play one, I just play Drake because he's going to be lower owned, and he's quite frankly the better of the two. He's had injury concerns though, so he's not really a slam dunk either. I'm probably going to avoid this situation. I do recognize that Balaj could kind of break the slate if he like breaks off another big run at 3,700, but I'll probably just risk it. It's not really the greatest matchup, and I like paying down for some of these cheaper receivers anyways. So I'll hit the midsection with the running backs like Coleman, Jamal Williams, and I'll probably avoid the Miami guys.
Let's talk about probably the single most confusing thing that can happen on this slate. The most expensive running back is Todd Gurley in a primo matchup as 14.5-point favorites on the road in Arizona. There is a problem though. Todd Gurley is a game time decision with an inflamed knee. It doesn't seem like it's Justin Davis, right? That's the backup.
Yeah. Justin Davis and then John Kelly.
So Justin Davis is hurt with a shoulder injury. It doesn't look like he's going to go either, meaning John Kelly would be the starter, except they've come out today and said, at least beat reporters for the Rams, that C.J. Anderson, who was recently signed, would be the starter over John Kelly, which doesn't even make any sense to me considering he was signed this week. C.J. Anderson is not in the DraftKings system for Week 16. John Kelly is. So let's live in a world where we find out at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time that Todd Gurley is active for this game. Would you late swap onto Todd Gurley knowing that no one is going to own him?
Oh, I don't think I could do it. Here's how I think this game's going to go. I think the Rams passing attack is going to score a couple touchdowns. They're going to get Jared Goff back on track. Gurley will probably play like the first half, take a few snaps, and then you just won't see him again. That's how I think the game's going to go. So if I think that's how the game's going to go, I'm just going to avoid Todd Gurley, and I'm going to attack with the Rams pass catchers. I'm just going to avoid this situation. John Kelly is not getting backup duties because, quite frankly, I just don't think he's that good. He didn't look that good in preseason. I know some people have some, appeal from him from college, and he looked good at times, but I don't think he's an every down back. And the fact that he hasn't been able to get into the backup role and even see the field probably should be some clue there. So I'm not going to risk that. CJ Anderson actually might have been the play here, but he's not in the system. So who cares? I'm just going to avoid it. I think that's the play personally. Use the Rams pass catchers. They're all going to be low owned.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Woods would be my preference too. We'll get to him in a second when we talk about receivers. But if let's say Gurley is out and John Kelly is sitting there at $4,000, you're looking at the 3 games left on the late slate. That means you could pivot off of Breda onto John Kelly or potentially one of the cheaper Saints receivers, whether it be like Traquan or Kirkwood. If that was in your flex, you could just make the move over. Would that intrigue you at all to take the risk that you get John Kelly? All of a sudden, he's playing 80% of the snaps out of nowhere as 14-point favorites against a terrible run defense.
And it really comes down to what situation you're in. If say you're on like a chalky player from Pittsburgh or New Orleans or something, I don't know, or just one of the late games, right? The guy maybe with a little heavier ownership, although I don't know if anyone's going to be heavily owned in these late games. And Gurley gets ruled out. I think Kelly is probably the GPP play because, look, I mean, if the Rams do get up heavily, regardless of what I think of John Kelly, he's probably going to see some snaps in the second half, right? So that's probably, if he breaks one big play and he does have some explosiveness as a runner, then, you're there, right? I mean, there's a potential for a really big second half. That's probably the move. Like I said, I'm not going to go out of my way to do it, but if I'm in a GPP and I really want to get contrarian or I'm just down and I need it to hit the cash line or something, I think Kelly's probably the play. I think I'd probably take him over Breida.
Switch to wide receivers. The most owned wide receivers, according to FanshareSports.com's tagging system for the Millionaire Maker slate. We got Robbie Anderson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Alshon Jeffrey, 1, 2, 3. I do think that Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper are going to carry some ownership right around 15%. But like I mentioned off the top, and this is why I want to do the draw, again, remember, like the episode, leave your DraftKings handle and tell me which 7K plus wide receiver that's not DeAndre Hopkins that you would play this week if you had to pick one of them, because it just seems like it's flat, like 10%, 12%, 14%, 15%, 13%. Now, I know that's not how it's going to turn out because everyone's going to make their choices, and I bet you everyone ends up on one or two of the same players, and it could be Amari Cooper in this spot. I'm just very confused because this Juju injury thing really throws everything into flux because it does look like he's going to play, which means that he's going to be lower owned, so maybe it all goes on to Antonio Brown, but without Beckham around now, anyone who wanted to play him could go on to Diggs or up to Thielen or down to Cooper. Like, do you have a read on this whatsoever? Because I don't.
I think Devontae Adams is going to be pretty popular. I think people are going to talk themselves into him.
They should. They should talk themselves into Devontae Adams.
Right. I mean, the Jets secondary is terrible. I mean, they're talking. That's basically the only thing the Packers offense seems to be playing for right now is just getting him a bigger season, reaching some milestones. So seems pretty safe. And I think that's where most people are going to try and get up to. I don't think people are going to go on to Antonio Brown. I think that's actually the play I'd prefer because, again, I think that New Orleans-Pittsburgh game does have a lot of potential to just be that game that you need exposure to. And I don't think he's going to be super popular. Again, the road splits with Brown haven't been that good. I think most people wanted to play Juju in this spot, but I don't think it's going to necessarily mean it just all goes over to Antonio Brown. I think more Devontae Adams, he'll be looked at as the safer play. So that's the guy I would look at as, probably being like just behind Hopkins in terms of ownership. With maybe Cooper in there as well.
The highest owned player on this slate is likely going to be Robbie Anderson. Can you stomach a 30% owned Robbie Anderson?
I'll have zero Robbie Anderson.
I'm going to say, I'm thinking about just playing him in all my lineups.
Okay. I mean, hey, it's all or nothing. And I appreciate that play too, because look, I mean, he's a good player. It's got nothing to do with my opinion of Robbie Anderson. He's a sub 4.4 guy. He's looked great at times in his career when he hasn't been like getting in huge trouble off the field. And he looked great last week. But just remember, I mean, again, the matchup is a little bit worse than I think people realize. Jari Alexander is a very, very fast, very skilled, athletic corner who should be shadowing him in this game. He's shut down some other pretty good wide receivers in matchups. I think Julio said it was his toughest matchup of the year. So this isn't going to be like last week against, a pretty bad Houston secondary. I think there's a lot of bust potential here. The Jets also don't throw the ball much, or they don't want to throw the ball much. So again, game flow could really work against him. There's just a couple other players I just like too much to eat the chalk here with Robbie Anderson.
So if we're down in that range, who are the preferred pivots off of Robbie Anderson? Because now that Deshaun Jackson looks like he's going to play, I'd initially like Chris Godwin, but I think I like Adam Humphries a little bit here because the slot against Dallas is something that you could take advantage of, and people are going to want to play Robert Foster, but I think I prefer Isaiah McKenzie.
I definitely think Humphries, someone on Tampa has some appeal. I'm all in on Dante Pettis this week, though. Absolutely all in. Again, Chicago secondary is a little bit banged up, and they're actually not as good at covering wide receivers as people think. They do tend to give up some big fantasy days. Dante Pettis essentially entrenched as the number one wide receiver there. He's very explosive after the catch. We saw him against Seattle break out that big, fantasy crusher day, 32 points. I think he's going to get good garbage time here. He's got Nick Mullins throwing the ball. I love the spot. I absolutely love the spot. He's also in warm weather. Like, you don't have to worry about the weather in that game. So 4,300, I'll be all over Dante Pettis.
I like McKenzie. Antonio Callaway is another sort of slate-breaking play that I like from below $4,000. That if you didn't want to use Pettis because you're scared of the matchup, I think Callaway is a viable option. Although, without Boyd, without A.J. Green, do you have any interest in John Ross? Because I don't know if I do or not.
No, actually, the guy I do have quite a bit of a appeal for is Alex Erickson, who's probably going to be taking the Tyler Boyd spot. He's going to be played in the slot. Very good punt kick returner. Actually, a guy you could look at for touchdown props too, in my opinion. John Ross is not a number one wide receiver. He's probably going to get shut down by Denzel Ward. But I think Erickson is the guy there. I think he could see a ton of garbage time. He's 3,300. Like I said, he's been with the Bengals for a while, mainly in the punt kick returner role, but he's got skill. Like he's a pretty good player. I actually really trust him at 3,300 this week. I think he could be a GPP winner.
Absolute dead minimum on this slate at wide receiver. No Odell. Russell Shepard looks like he's going to miss the game as well with an ankle injury. Shepard has been kind of useless as a wide receiver, one without Odell. Evan Ingram's the one getting all the pub, but Corey Coleman's playing on the other side. He's just going to be out there and potentially seeing a lot of volume if they get down in this game. I mean, they're almost 10-point dogs. Does that have any interest for you?
I mean, I like the idea of Corey Coleman, obviously. I mean, the guy's capable of breaking a big play. I think with the matchup against Indy, they've just been so suffocating against wide receivers. I'll probably just avoid it. Like I said, I like Erickson playing out of the slot a little bit better. But it's the same kind of deal. I mean, someone's got to catch the ball. Shepard's taking all the heat now. Ingram's obviously going to draw some attention now. It's the same kind of situation, right? I mean, Coleman could just be out there catching like 6-7 balls in the fourth quarter because no one's covering them. So something to think about. I'm not going to go that deep, but it's really not that much different than the Erickson call.
I mean, Benny Fowler played 71% of the snaps last week, so it could be him instead of Coleman. I just think that Coleman's better than Benny Fowler.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree 100% that.
So,
I mean, Coleman's like the explosive guy, right? Fowler's just, yeah.
I mean, Coleman's more worried about his shoe game, whether or not he can catch or not. I don't know. He's been on like 3 different teams. This is his 4th team of the year. So I don't know how ingrained he's going to be in an offense. So it's an absolute flyer play, really, if there ever was one. But the other thing, too, with Alshon drawing so much attention, do you have any feel for the mid, like, $5,000 range? You mentioned the Rams guys. I like Robert Woods this week. I think he could be very good. But like Edelman and Woods, those are 2 guys that no one really seems to be going to. And at low ownership, they're both in really good spots.
Yeah, I definitely on Robert Woods. I mean, you shouldn't have to worry about him seeing too much of Patrick Peterson. Woods has been 75% in the slot this year. Although the Rams do juggle their wide receivers. I actually think Brandon Cooks is slightly in play, but I would prefer Woods if push came to shove because they will, they'll circle Cooks off of Peterson a little bit. But I'll tell you, the guy I really like, again, I go back to that Bears 49ers game, is Allen Robinson. Again, San Francisco's been absolutely brutal covering against opposing wide receivers for fantasy purposes. They're down one of their cornerbacks, guy's name, Witherspoon, I think it is. This sets up as a good spot for Allen Robinson. And I know the fantasy games haven't been there, but guess who leads the league in drawn pass interferences at wide receiver?
Anyone who plays Jair Alexander.
Allen Robinson does. He leads the league in pass interference calls. I think he's due for a big game. And again, this comes down to GPP styles, but he can explode. He's looked good to me. I really like the spot for him, 54, and he's going to be like 2% owned. So Mitch Trubisky, Allen Robinson, that's a stack I'm definitely looking at this week.
He is banged up, not Allen Robinson. That would be Kenny Golladay coming into the week. He's questionable. It looks like he's going to play. Everyone on the Lions is questionable at this point, but Bruce Ellington is out again. You hear, Kenny Golladay is going to draw Xavier Rhodes, who's also banged up in his own right, but Kenny Golladay has put on a show in Buffalo last week. He's going to get all the volume. He may be inconsistent, but he's only $6,000. If you're looking for a target magnet, I like him a lot for GPPs.
Yeah, I think that's someone I'll be looking at too as I make lineups on Saturday. I was obviously waiting, for some more injury news. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't be questionable, but like you said, everyone on the Lions seems to be questionable these days. So Stafford's questionable too. I'll definitely have a little bit of Golladay exposure. I agree 100%. He's coming into his own as like a number one receiver. Legit, he's been putting up big games against good cornerbacks, and Detroit's going to be throwing the ball late in this game, I think. So Galladay's definitely got GPP appeal for sure.
Switch to quarterbacks. Number one in the fansharesports.com tagging system. Would you believe it? It is Dak Prescott. Josh Allen is second. Nick Foles is third. And then I got Breeze and Roethlisberger drawing some ownership as well, solely because that's the game that everyone wants to target because it's projected to score 5.5 more points than any other game on this Millionaire Maker slate. I'm not as big on it as other people are. I think it's going to be lower scoring, a lot like the Patriots and Steelers game from last week, just because the Saints defense is really good. And the Steelers defense is hit and miss each week, but it can be really good. And we've seen that the offense in New Orleans can struggle a little bit. Fading that game isn't the craziest idea. I know a few people are going to fade that game, but are you shocked that Dak could be the highest owned quarterback?
I mean, shocked in a way that I just don't know if people realize like how hit or miss the Dallas offense is, but also not shocked because he's only 5,200 or 5,700, excuse me. And it's Tampa, and he does bring the rushing upside. So I understand why people have talked themselves into it. I'm not going to have any Dak exposure. My exposure to the Cowboys will be either cheap tight end or just paying up for Zeke. So I'm fine fading the spot with Dak. Basically, it's the Cowboys offense. When they get chalky, it turns into kind of an easy fade for me, except for Zeke, who, the volume's there all the time with him, obviously.
So what are you doing at quarterback? I'm thinking about Luck and Josh Allen. I just keep playing Josh Allen every week, and every week it seems to work. So why would I stop doing that now? I kind of like Deshaun Watson from the high end. Based on that game, it should be projected to be close. It's harder to run on Philadelphia than I think that people realize. Hopkins should have an explosive game. If everyone wants to play Hopkins, I don't see why you wouldn't play Deshaun with him. Also, he has the rushing upside potential. And then I get into, what else do I want to do on this slate? Well, do I really want to pay down for the $4,000, the QB min, take my main man, Tyler Heineke?
I'm not taking Heineke.
I am going to have lineups that have him in it, though. I think it's just too much value to pass up.
Yeah, I know. And hey, that's fair. And look, it's the matchup you want, right? I mean, Atlanta's it's a good matchup. So I shouldn't diss it too much. And really, like 4K, you pair him with, I don't know, Curtis Samuel or whatever. Or
pair him with, don't even pair him with anyone. Just play him and see what happens.
Just see what happens. Yeah, no, I like that. I mentioned Allen Robinson. I'm going to have Trubisky for sure. I think it's a good matchup. Again, you don't have to worry about the weather there. I think it's a spot where Trubisky in the pass game, like he could just go throw like 25 times and throw 4 touchdown passes or something like that and then run for a bunch of yards. So I think it's a really underrated spot. They're going to be like nothing owned. So Trubisky for tournaments for sure. I'll have some Nick Foles, although I'm a little disappointed that everyone is on the Nick Foles train, although maybe I shouldn't tweet so much about it. To add to that. But like Nick Foles with like a cheap Dallas Goedert or something like that. I'll have a couple lineups in that vein, maybe one with Alshon, although Alshon's turned out to be chalky too. And then again, I'm going to have a little bit of Ben like Brown stacks. I don't think this game is going to be like a chalk fest. And I agree. I mean, there's potential for bust. I mean, look, the Saints offense has not been good. Both of these defensive has actually been the better units than the offenses lately. So, but I also think that's going to keep ownership down. And especially with Ben, 6,700, I don't think too many people are actually going to pay up for him. So I'll have some exposure to those stacks and tournaments. And then, like I said, Trubisky, I'm not quite sure on Foles because like I wasn't expecting him to be as popular, but I'll have a cheap quarterback mixed in there.
Yeah, I think Heineke, if you're going to pay down, is probably the move just because you save so much money compared to everyone else. I'm out on Nick Foles. But Baker interests me. You mentioned like the Breeze and Ben. I'm good with fading that. But I think if you fade Chubb, playing Baker makes sense. Like if you fade Marlon Mack, playing Luck makes sense because you expect these teams to score. But if all of a sudden they're passing touchdowns, not running touchdowns, you almost get double the amount of points because everyone is using the running game and no one is using the passing game. So I think that's interesting. The one guy that really stands out to me that he could pass the ball 45 times in this game. And it might not be a clean 45, and he might get benched halfway through the game because it's a bad matchup. But Jameis Winston is only $5,500, and he's going to be passing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. Like he obviously has been kind of bad on the road, good Dallas defense. But, yeah, they should be in a position to be passing a lot. I'm not going to go there. He's getting Deshaun Jackson back. I guess that's a good thing. I guess you could pair him with Humphreys or something like that, and Mike Evans. I'm not going to do it.
I don't even. I mean, if you pair him with someone, you have to hit right. It would probably be Brait or Humphreys if I were to pair him with anyone. But it just could be a game where you play Jameis and you just look at the end of the day. Oh, Tampa's lost by 8 points, or they've lost by 6 points, and we're never in contention. They lost 30 to 24, and all of a sudden, Jameis has 3 touchdowns, 400 yards.
Yeah, and he's like run for 50 yards.
Yeah, and he has like 3 picks and whatever. But it's just a huge fantasy day.
With 5 turnovers, and he still gets like almost 30 points. No, absolutely. I don't think it's the worst strategy. He's only 5,500. He's cheap enough, and you have a little bit of rushing expectancy with Jameis, right? So that's good. I think I'd almost prefer him over Josh Allen personally, but that's a bigger decision. I'm just going to continue my fade on Josh Allen until he eventually busts. It'll probably be like 2020. He'll bust eventually, but but yeah, I mean that's pretty much quarterback. It seems like it's going to be pretty flat ownership. I don't think you have to fade anyone particularly because I don't think anyone's going to be super highly owned. Dak is maybe the one play that might get like uber chalky. But again, I mean, if people don't love Cooper, is everyone going to play Dak? I don't know.
I don't have anyone projected for more than 12% ownership, so I don't think there's an ownership fade on anyone. You can play whoever you want. Tight ends could be a little bit different because now that Odell Beckham has been ruled out, Evan Ingram is going to likely be the uber chalk at the position. But frankly, when I look at the pricing and I look at all the available tight ends, I don't really know who else to play.
Yeah, no, I know. It's rough this week. I mean, especially when you're paying up, right? Like usually you can like say, a week like this, you can pay up for like a safe Travis Kelce or something like that. But I mean, you got Ebron coming off like a bust week in another matchup where kind of feels like that, they're not going to need him too much. And then you got Zach Ertz, who's getting a little bit banged up, is putting up a couple duds now. Didn't look great with Nick Foles last week. Dallas Goedert's getting more involved there. And then what? I mean, Kittle against the Bears? Oh, no thanks. I mean, and then you're just talking about guys in the 3K range who, for me, it's going to be Ingram or it's going to be like someone really cheap with like potential for like a 50-yard touchdown, like Dallas Goedert or something like that. So Blake Jarwin.
So yeah, Blake Jarwin's getting a little bit of buzz here this week too. I'm not really in on that, although he is running more routes. I recommend everyone go check out Levy's article, the market share report up on DK Playbook right now. He always breaks the stuff down. That was a good nugget that was in there this week. It's a recommended reading every week. It's one of like the 5 fantasy columns that I actually do seek out because it has very actionable information in it. That Silva's column, and I'll save the other 3 to myself because I need that research for me. But those 2, everyone needs to go read those ones every single week. Great information. But Ingram, in terms of the fan share tagging, it's Ingram, then it's Ebron, then it's Ertz. I would rather go to Ebron than go to Ertz for one, because I just don't know what the rapport between Ertz and Foles is like, and maybe it was just a 1-week aberration, but like you mentioned, he's banged up. I think Njoku is in play because of the matchup. If I had to go down, I'd go to Herndon or potentially Ian Thomas in a rebound week, because we're talking about a backup tight end against like a quarterback no one knows anything about. However, when a backup quarterback comes in, they tend to have a better rapport with the backups, at least from the beginning of the year, that they worked with in the preseason, that I can see Ian Thomas having a pretty good game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thomas, I think, is in play. Obviously, fairly boomer bust, but he's looked really good the last couple weeks. So I don't think he's necessarily like a full fade. If you like me and you like Atlanta in that game, though, he's got the potential to see some heavier targeting with like a game flow that goes in his direction. I'm with you on Ebron. I'd rather take my chances with Ebron with a bounce back and getting a few more targets than going to Ertz, who I think Ertz is a little bit banged up. Just watching the last couple of games, he just does not look that good. I don't know if it's the rapport or what, but that kind of is also why I don't mind Dallas Goedert a little bit. If you're going to pay down, just go down and go for a guy who's put up 14 or more points a couple times already this year and is actually getting a little bit consistent targeting late in the season. So I really don't mind Goddard in tournaments, 2,600. And Jarwin's in play. I might have a little bit of exposure. He's definitely the best pass catcher. And this is a guy in preseason who, most people were expecting to be a part of the pass game, and for whatever reason, they just bypassed him. But he's got some talent as a pass catcher. So the matchup looks good for him. He's only 3K. There's just not much you can hang your hat on outside of Ingram, though. I feel good about the Ingram play, but it's going to be chalky.
I'd rather go Herndon and Thomas over Jarwin if it was up to me. But defenses, To close this out by Fanshare Sports tagging system, the Patriots come in at number 1, which I thought was kind of surprising. Then it's the Rams and it's the Falcons playing a backup quarterback. And the Falcons paid off last week, so hell, why wouldn't they do it again? That seems to be what everyone thinks. If they did it one week, why wouldn't they do it again? The other ones I have up, the Cowboys I think will be popular, and I think the Dolphins will be popular. I don't have one defense projected for over 10% ownership this week, so it's completely flat. Take whoever you like. I'm interested in the Jags after Ryan Tannehill got dropped 9 times last week. I can see the Jags having a pretty good game. I like the Vikings, who did sack Tannehill 9 times, and now they're dealing with a banged-up Stafford. Fun fact, last time they played the Lions, the Vikings sacked Matt Stafford 12 times. I think that might be the move.
Yeah, Vikings. I mean, Vikings paid off for me last week. They have been worse on the road, so like quite a bit worse. It's a little bit concerning. I'm probably not going to go there, but they're going to be like minusculely owned here. I think they'll probably be like under 5%, so that's good. You're right though about the ownership thing. Like there's really no uber chalk at defense this week. So kind of go wherever I kind of just want to play the Rams everywhere and just take the free 10 points and possibly the free 20 points because. Again, I mean, like, this is just like a huge bounce back spot. It feels like for a defense who's kind of been embarrassed in 2 losses. Although it's not really their fault they've lost, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different plays you go. I think Atlanta's interesting. Although if you're a little bit high on Heineke, I can see why you'd want to fade them. I mean, expecting 2 big weeks in a row from them is it seems like a trap. I don't mind the Patriots. I really don't.
I don't want that. If the Patriots are going to carry, be the highest owned D, I'm good with fading them. I think Rams and cash makes the most sense. I think for GPPs, you got the Vikings. I think they're a very live option. Pay up for the Bears against San Francisco because they can embarrass Mullins if everything goes sideways, and it doesn't seem like they're going to carry a ton of ownership. Or pay down for your boys, the Eagles, because Deshaun Watson gets sacked 7 times a game anyway.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like some of these $2,100 defenses, like they're in play. I don't even mind the Lions, quite frankly. Kirk Cousins is kind of turning the ball over a lot too. So I think the Eagles and Lions at 2,100 are both in play, and that's kind of why I'm having trouble committing to a play this week because I just keep going down, and I'm like, well, these guys are usable. These guys are usable too. So it just might be the play to use like the Eagles, the Lions, a really cheap defense this week, and just hope because. It feels like all these teams we're talking about have the potential for like big games here. So that's kind of where I'm at on defense, just not really settled yet. Gonna probably make my decision on like Sunday morning.
It's too that when you construct your lineups, you might just see what defense fits with the salary cap that you have left. It seems like one of those weeks where it's not like, oh, here are the 3 defenses that everyone's targeting. They're in really good spots. Let's make sure to use some combination of these 3. It seems like everything's really close here because like Tennessee and the Redskins would have been a really good defense, but they're not on the slate. Yeah.
And the other thing is just look for some correlation. Like if you have Chubb and you have enough left over for the Browns, do that. I mean, that's, not because lots of people have Chubb, not lots of people have Chubb and the Browns defense, right? So same thing with Tevin Coleman and Atlanta, a couple other players like that. You can Mac and the Colts. So it's never bad to correlate your running back with the defense. It'll spice up your lineup a bit, make you a bit differentiate, especially because some of these defenses are going to be low on. So.
The odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds. And if you or anyone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. The lines have changed a bit since early in the week, Geoff. Is there any one game in particular you're looking at right away?
This week I'm not, Pat. Like I kind of same thing with the defenses. There's no one on this slate that I'm absolutely in love with. Like there was 3 or 4 bets last week that I really liked. And there's just not really. I
like Houston over Philly.
Houston over Philly. Okay, I'm probably on Philly there, but again, it's not something I'm going out of my way to get exposure to. I think right now my favorite bet is Detroit. Obviously I want to wait on the Golladay and Stafford news, but if Galladay's out there, I think Detroit at home. Minnesota has not been a good road team. I like the home dog. Home dogs have been good this year. I think 6 points. It's at 6 points now. I really like that. It's up from 5.5. I think Detroit is probably my favorite play. Been on the lines a couple times this year. They've been like 50-50 for me, but I like that play. I think the Lions are getting a little bit too much disrespect.
The Packers opened as 1.5-point dogs against the Jets, then immediately went up to -3 when Aaron Rodgers said he was playing. They're down to 2.5. I think the Packers win this game, so I think that they cover. You know, they haven't won a game on the road yet.
No, I didn't know that actually. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, and look, I'm not going to play the Jets at only +2.5, so I definitely would side with the Packers there. Obviously, that might be a little bit of a chalky play, like from a public perspective, public betting perspective, which worries me a bit, but still, I'd side with the Packers. And it actually probably my second favorite game, and it's another really big public spot, but it's the Bears at -4.
It is a very big. The two biggest public teams of the week right now are the Vikings and the Bears.
Yeah, so obviously I'm going against it with the Lions, but I'm going with it with the Bears, and I'm just going to stick with it. I sometimes in these spots I'll get off it, but still one of the best defenses in the league. Offense that continually gets underrated, in my opinion, going up against the secondary in San Francisco that's banged up. And the 49ers coming off a big division win. It's just a letdown spot for them. I think people are just getting overhyped on this Nick Mullins guy who, like you mentioned, probably due for a blow-up game. I'm going to be on the Bears too. I think right now Lions and Bears are my two biggest leans. Yeah.
The Texans are my biggest one. I actually lied. The most money on any one side of any game this week is actually on the Colts, and I think that line is off by like 3-4 points. It's only getting bigger with the Giants. Not that I like the Giants. I think they're fucking terrible.
Right.
But they can cover 10 against Indy. It's such a perfect confluence of the Indy looked so great last week in a game that everyone watched against a perceived great opponent, and the Giants were at home and got embarrassed by the Titans. Like those teams, the Colts aren't as good as they looked last week, and the Giants aren't as bad as they looked last week. So the number should really be like 6. And by game time, you're probably going to get 10.5. It's 9.5 right now.
If it gets up to 10, I'll be on it with you, I think, because I pretty much agree. I mean, just from a pure garbage time perspective, like Eli and Ingram could get this within 10. I mean, it's not, they don't have to do much. I mean, then remember, this is in a dome, like where Eli's, going to be nice and comfy. It's not going to be wet and rainy, and it's not going to be like hucking the ball on the ground every second throw, right? So I agree 100% with that call. I think the Giants can keep it within 10. Even at 9.5, I think it's a good bet.
You could make a really scummy parlay with just awful teams if you wanted to. You could take the Skins +10 in Tennessee. You could take the Giants at +9.5 right now, and I do think that number does grow. I would take them in Indianapolis, and I'm thinking about eating the 14.5 with the Cardinals at home. Like they might get shut out again and lose like 35-0, but I can see the Rams really kind of jumping out to a lead and just sitting on their lead for as long as they can to make sure no one gets hurt. And that's a recipe for them not to cover the 14.5.
I learned my lesson pretty early in this year, and I'm just not going to bet anything to do with Arizona. But I do see with Gurley banged up now and the potential, the Rams might have, but a little bit of issues just salting the game away late with no Gurley. Then there's more to like about Arizona, I guess, than usual. But I won't be touching that. What about the Bucks?
I picked the Bucks on the show. I think that's a no bet game for me. As we speak right now, I'm going to play a Redskins, Giants, Arizona, and Jacksonville +3.5 parlay. Boom.
The Battle of Miami. I mean, the Jaguars could show up. Obviously, it's a little bit of pride there. Jacksonville's kind of in Arizona territory for me. I'm just not going to bet it. I don't mind the Bucks. I think if it got to like 7.5, or if it goes off at 7.5, there's that would probably become a bet for me. I think the game I like more than that though is the Steelers at +6, or even just the Steelers money line.
I don't like the Steelers. I think the Saints wax them. I think this game ends up like 24-10. Yeah.
I don't know.
The Steelers are not good, and the Ravens are winning that division.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I like the Steelers. I think their defense came to play last week. I think they'll play again. I think this is the spot for the Steelers where everyone is expecting them to lose, and they're just going to go out and play. And there's no pressure on them this week because everyone is expecting.
There is a ton of pressure on them this week, because especially if Baltimore wins on Saturday night, which I think they can in LA, or at least make a game of that. Like that game reeks of the Chargers blowing it in spectacular fashion, based on some terrible special teams play, and all of a sudden Lamar Jackson running for an 80-yard touchdown. And if that's the case, the pressure is really ratcheted up on the Steelers, because then all of a sudden Baltimore controls its own destiny, and if they go win and they can beat Cleveland next week, they win that division.
That's true. Hey, if the Ravens do win, like on Saturday, I would agree. I mean, it becomes a little bit more of a pressure spot, but at the same time, it's still everyone's talking about how now the Ravens are going to win that division. And I just feel like the Steelers are a team right now. They're kind of against the wall. I just like the spot for them. I really do. I think Ben is good enough to go into the dome and take care of a tougher defense. And he's still got Antonio Brown, still got, Jalen Samuels. So at the very least, I like the +6. You don't have to bet the money line like me, but I'll probably take the money line there. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we just see it differently, but I don't mind the Steelers. I think +6 is too much.
You got to lean for KC and Seattle because this jumped up to it's been 2.5 all week. It momentarily went up to +3, and then all of a sudden it immediately went back to 2.5 because I think everyone jumped on Seattle. I like Seattle in this game.
I have gone back and forth about this. Even last week I was like, I can't wait to bet the Chiefs in their next game coming off that big loss.
I think it's a follow the money game. And a lot of people are going to be chasing losses throughout the day because, fun fact, everyone loses at gambling on the NFL. So they're going to triple down on whatever the Sunday night game is because that happens every week, especially when you have two pretty visible teams in Kansas City and the Seahawks. So if I'm going to keep checking on it, and if the line moves either way, or if I see the money gets up to 75% on one side, I'll just take the other side.
Yeah, and that's definitely one way to approach it. I don't think it's a bad way. I think there's a lot of people who expect the Seahawks to keep this close and to keep it, their style of game. It is supposed to be a little bit rainy there. And that's actually the one thing that's maybe kept me from just going all in on the Chiefs. But I still think when push gets to shove, I'm going to be on the Chiefs in this game. I think they're going to get off to a fast start. I think they're going to force the Seahawks to play their game. And that's Seahawks secondary. I think that's the thing that people are just overlooking. I don't think there's anyone there that can stop Tyreek Hill or Kelsey or the other options. So, I think the Chiefs get right back on track, and I'm leaning towards betting them Sunday night.
You said you had a play for first touchdown in one of these games. I'm curious. So we gave out 3 plays on the show last week. I didn't hit my Weird Al Jankovic, so he didn't hit, but you hit Brashad Perriman on the other side. Then I gave out Andy Jones. He cashed at 20-1 for me. It was 28-1 on another site that people sent me screenshots of. Then I hit DeMarcus Robinson. We were 3 for 4 in first touchdowns last week, which if you would bet them probably paid for the year in NFL betting because they were such stupid odds. 40-1 for Perriman. I don't have a whole bunch of leans. I'm thinking about playing the sprinkler at 20-1, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, actually, okay. First funny story about last week, because I wasn't even watching that game. I had to go do stuff with my family, and then I just checked my Twitter. I had 12 notifications or 20 notifications or something. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So I check it, and everyone's like, Perriman. And I checked the game because I just finished watching the other game. I wasn't going to watch the Browns game. And I forgot that I'd even made that bet, but it was awesome. It was a good way to find out about it, anyways. But okay, this week I like the other tight end. Cole Pruitt, 50-1, Pat. Played over 50% of the snaps last week. He's playing over Berkser. Michael Pruitt's a pass-catching tight end. Saw a red zone target last week. 50-1. It's 50-1. I mean, obviously, look, there's no guarantees here, but I like it.
I was hoping that you would start guaranteeing your first touchdown picks. That'd be fantastic.
No, not quite at that. I mean, if this hits, next week, it might be the guarantee. But no, I'm going to hit that up. Sprinkler, I think at 20-1 is okay too. But I like that. I mean, look, Titans home game, get off to a fast start. Like I said, Pruitt's in there as the pass catcher now. So
we got last week against the Giants, we had Luke Stalker, 66% of the snaps. Michael Pruitt, who spells his name Cole, by the way, which is just absolutely terrific. Yeah. He played 57% of the snaps. Ferkster, who everyone loved, only played 21%. Now, do you think that's because they were leading and running the ball so much that they had Pruitt out there to block as well?
Here's the thing, though. Pruitt's a pass catching back. He was a pass catcher in college, so I don't know why they'd be putting him over Ferkster unless they liked him. And he's been getting worked in for a while for the Titans, so I kind of think they're going with him personally. I'm going to try and look up if I can find a little bit of Titans news here, before I super commit to it. But I'm going to put a little bit of money on it at the very least because it's 50-1. But yeah, I think he's at those odds. If he's going out there over Ferkser, for sure, that could be a potentially really good bet. So, yeah. Anyways, that's the guy from this game with long odds. I like Josh Johnson at 26. Is he down to 21? 21 too. I think both him and Sprinkler have some appeal at those odds.
The Sprinkler. So I'll play the Sprinkler and I'll play Pruitt. Those will be 20-1 and 50-1 as my first touchdown bets. Did you look at the other game?
Yeah, there was
no good value, right?
I think Mark Andrews is interesting.
Tight end. All the tight ends are. Do we know if Boyle's going to play? Because I haven't heard anything about it all week.
No, I haven't either.
I'll go look that up
Andrews
right now.
has been getting 3 or 4 targets, like with Jackson in a QB. Obviously, it's a big gamble because Jackson runs so much in the red zone and stuff like that. But he's 40-1, so I mean the odds are there. Yeah, it would really help if Nick Boyle didn't play. I think that'd become a better bet. Snead at 21 that's not bad for Willie Snead because he's basically been Jackson's best target, right? So,
but I think I would play 20-1. Like you could set the line that it's 20-1 for Lamar Jackson to throw a passing touchdown in this game, and it'd be
no, and so that's why I'm not really I don't really like anyone from this.
Like Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst is 50-1. I think that if Boyle sits, targeting one of those long shot Baltimore tight ends might be the move.
Yeah, that's what jumped out to me first. Like I'll probably be on Andrews for a small bet at the very least.
Fuck, Chris Moore scored a touchdown last week, didn't he? He did.
Yeah, he did. He did score.
There's our play right there. Chris Moore,
okay.
80-1, first touchdown in the Chargers and Ravens game. I'm in on that. So I'm glad that we can bleed back some of the money we won last week.
Hey, I mean, you gotta give back a little bit, help support these books, right? I mean,
yeah, of course I do. So, Geoff Ulrich, it's been a pleasure having you on all year. I think the fans have really grown to enjoy you. I'm not gonna lie.
Good. No, I'm glad. I mean, I like doing these shows, talking about ownership late in the week, get a little update for people going in, talking strategy, so people have something to listen to over the weekend and stuff. And yeah, no, appreciate people obviously download the episode too. I mean, I like. We're just talking about football here. It's fun. So definitely keep watching. Appreciate it.
And I'm sure you'll be back for the golf season to chat some stuff because you guys got a lot of fun going on at fantasygolfmetrics.com. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I mean, go and check out the site. Obviously, one and done contest running up there. Lots of stats. You can obviously, if you want to dive into the memberships there. But yeah, I'll be doing stuff for Fantasy Golf Metrics most likely this year, and probably doing some podcasts too. So take a look for that. Golf season's, we were just talking about this before the show. It's like a week away.
So I will be back on Sunday with the live show with Cust and Garion to update all of this news. You can check out all the shows from earlier this week. The Spread Show, the DraftKings Show that had the Siege and Draft Sheet on it. That was fun. Of course, Jeff and the Cust on the Pick Show. And the Injury Report from Friday night. This will be released on a Saturday despite being recorded on Friday afternoon. Next week, Monday, on Christmas Eve, the season preview for the PGA Tour drops. Cust Corner, the Christmas edition, a Custy Christmas, comes out Christmas Day. That's my gift to all you people out there. Wednesday, we'll have the Week 17 rankings. We're hoping to get the UFC picks up on Thursday along with the Spread Show and then the DraftKings Show next Friday to bring you into the new year. And then all of a sudden, we're talking golf and playoff football, and it should be a lot of fun. Give the episode a like. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Let me know which non-DeAndre Hopkins receiver who's above $7,000 that you would play if you had to in the DraftKings Millionaire Maker slate this weekend. You're in a draw for $20 DK. Remember, give me a Christmas gift and go subscribe to the podcast and download all the audio versions because that would really make my day and make my holiday season. Thank you all for watching. Good luck in Week 16. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!